With the CBT3 now being out for quite a while and the launch date being, unofficially announced, let's talk about the current state of Zenless Zone Zero. This video will be a follow-up to my first review, so if you haven't watched that one yet, I recommend you to do so. Let's talk about the combat, the TVs, progression and rewards, the gacha banners, everything that has changed since the last beta, and the good and the bad. And if you should consider giving Zenless Zone Zero a shot, or not. Let's start with the latter. Yes, of course you should give indeed Zenless Zone Zero a shot. If you are watching this video, you either are already interested, in which case you can just play it, it's free after all, and drop it if you don't like it. Or you just hate watching, and in which case leave me a comment on why you are doing that. That being said, let's talk about the cutscenes and animations. While most of them seem to be more or less exactly the same as in the CBT2, a few have slightly improved simply by adding or adjusting some visuals. Nothing major, but given how much praise the game has received already in the last CBT for this, it is great to see Hoyo improving on things nobody has complained about. I just wish they would have put this effort into the TVs instead. More on that later. All dialogue now features a small menu in the top right, allowing you to either read a recap of the current dialogue, having it autoplay, or skipping the dialogue altogether. While the skip is not totally new, the menu in itself is. So if you are watching any cutscenes for the first time, this menu will not be available, however you can skip the same cutscene afterwards. When you first enter the game, the basic gameplay tutorial is now not a simple pop-up, but instead highlights the areas and requires you to interact with them, which I think is a massive improvement to the CBT2. Overall, I think the UI does feel much nicer than in the previous CBT, but after looking back at my old footage, that does seem mostly like just a feeling. They did, however, change some fonts and wordings. Let's talk about the big changes. The Bangboos have been completely reworked. The Holo Zero Endgame has also been completely reworked. The Shiyu defense endgame has been added and now finally allows for some proper meta discussion. The entire Interknot progression, that's the Trailblazer level or adventure rank for you HSR or Genshin players out there, has been changed completely. Stats and stat rolls on the disk drives, which are this game's relics or artifact equivalent, have also been changed, thank God, and 2 new difficulty modes have been added. I also might have forgotten some stuff, but let's talk about all of that one by one. The Bangboos. Bangboos are your little pets. While in the CBT2 they have been handed to you by mail from Hoyo, in the CBT3 now you obtain them from gacha pulls. That is right, they have their own banner, including rate ups. Now, before you start hate typing OMG Hoyo, how can you, what the fuck my money, so greedy, let me say you cannot spend any real money on this banner. This banner uses a special currency called coup ans, which you can only acquire by in-game means. Actually, that is a lie. Technically seen, as we now do have access to the battle pass, and if the current battle pass reflects the one we will be getting on the live servers when the game releases, there are a total of 5 pulls per season you can get additionally if you do buy the premium version of the battle pass. So I guess technically seen you can spend money for like 5 pulls. The banner has a pity of 80 with a base probability of 1%, 2% including the guarantee for any S-rank Bangaboo, with a 75 to 25 of losing your 50-50. I mean, that sentence doesn't make a lot of sense, but you know what I mean. This 75-25 and the increased 1% drop rate also applies to the weapon banner. Also, please Hoyoverse, change that font, it's ugly as fuck. What is that? Slightly off topic, but I actually think the UI banner is probably the worst looking UI in the entire game. It just doesn't look appealing at all. Like zero. Next, this little fella here has apparently been trashed and got replaced by this book. This is a bit unfortunate, since also the amount of free currency we get from the now called Arans are way less than in CBT2. However, only 400 activity are needed to get your daily 60 polychromes, which are the primogems of ZZZ, and you can customize one task to your liking, which will yield you 500 engagement at once. The 4 default runs will probably take you literally 2 minutes of your time. Actually, let me just do that at 2 times speed. Yeah, that's all. Log in, set up store, scratch a ticket, drink a coffee, and you are done. Next up, the Holo Zero. First of all, the UI is so clean now compared to the previous CBT. Secondly, you now have a clear sense of progression. The Holo Zero is your roguelite experience, similar to the simulated universe in Star Rail. Furthermore, you now get one-time rewards for raising your license level. In total, there are 960 polychromes, 12 pulls on the Bangboos banner, 6 copies of Boo Treasure, which is like this little guy, and various other small rewards. The combat configuration will grant you passive buffs, again similar to the simulated universe. Next to the Holo Zero, we can now find the Shiyu defense, which is the abyss or MOC of this game. Like literally. I won't have to explain this much, but the meta and tier lists will be based on this game mode, I'm very sure about that. Clearing the first 10 stable nodes, as they are called, will reward you with 3000 polychromes or around 18 pulls. Farming has also been slightly reworked. While mostly the same as before, the UI now looks much cleaner and the UX has certainly and significantly improved. However, you now also find your weekly bosses here, which you can indeed do together with your friends or strangers, because finally we do have multiplayer, at least for the weekly bosses. And rewards can be claimed up to 3 times a week. This is also a good time to mention that story stages and challenges do not consume any stamina anymore. The Interknot Level. In the last CBT, you literally just leveled as you did your stuff and that was it. But now Hoyo does start gatekeeping you, just like in all of the other games. You will get rewards at every Interknot level. If my information is correct, as of CBT3, this should give you 1200 polychromes, 30 standard banner pulls and 12 coupons in total, as well as 800 polychromes, 5 standard pulls and 7 coupons from the trials. So that being said, let's talk about stats and disk drives. As I and a few others are already theocrafting the game, at least I am very happy about the changes. In the last CBT, pen ratio has been a mandatory stat to the point where it was literally the BIS stat for every single unit in the entire game and you wanted it at 100%. Unfortunately, well, fortunately technically seen, that has been changed. A new stat called Anomaly Proficiency has also been added, which now serves the same purpose as Anomaly Mastery did in the CBT2, and Anomaly Mastery now instead influences the build-up of Anomaly on enemies. It's a little bit confusing, but you will understand it when you play. Agents now also feature a new speciality, attack, stun, support, defense or anomaly, and core skills now depend on the attribute or faction. To be honest, the old damage types, pierce, slash or strike, now feel a little bit like a useless leftover from the old CBT. Let's see if they will keep it or remove it. Oh, and a new anomaly has been added, Disorder. Well, technically it is not an anomaly, but it procs if you trigger a different anomaly than the one before. So for example, Shock into Assault would trigger Disorder, which then deals damage based on the previous anomaly. We are currently not really sure how exactly that works, but we will get there. Anyway, back to the disk drives. Slot 5 disk drives now also feature a new damage bonus stat for each type in the game. This equals to a total of 5 new possible stats, making it significantly harder to get the stat you want. And I personally would have preferred the stat to be a singular, I don't know, attribute damage percent bonus or something. However, at least this now allows for a possible choice on the 5th slot instead of being just pen ratio in literally 100% of all cases. Regarding the story, when playing it for the first time, you can now choose between a normal or a hard difficulty. This literally only changes the amount of HP enemies have and the damage they inflict. Personally, I did not feel the hard mode to be worth it, if I'm being honest. However, you now also have access to hard mode challenges, which you can replay the story in, granting you 20 polychromes and some mats for each. Those two hard modes are different, even though they are both called hard mode, I guess. One important thing though, these challenge modes scale with your level, which I personally think is a nice touch. So they will at least always stay a challenge, at least level-wise. And I know you have been waiting for it, but last but not least, let's talk about the TVs. They are still there, they are still as annoying as they have been before, at least if you didn't like it in the first place. Well, let's talk about it. First of all, they are certainly way more responsive than in the CBT2, so that is a huge plus. Secondly, the amount of TVs you overall encounter during the story has been significantly reduced. Like I'm sure that's like half of what it has been before or even less. And last, you can now forward the play rate by 100% and basically play it at double speed while you hold shift. This makes the overall navigation during exploration commissions and the main story way less tedious if you don't care about it. Having all that said, this is my conclusion. Please keep in mind I am heavily biased, so please make your own takeaway by looking up different sources of information in the internet or simply playing the game by yourself when it releases. That way you can see yourself if you like it or not. I think the game has massively improved since the last CBT. While I don't agree with all of the choices Hoyo made, such as keeping this use your relic XP mats to getcha for new relics system in place, like I don't know what that is, but apparently they keep it. Which, in my opinion, is still probably by far the worst entire feature of this game. However, many negative points from my last video have been addressed. The TVs are less tedious. Let's be honest, we will never get them like completely removed. That's like way too late for that now. We now have actual endgame modes. The game feels way more combat focused than before. The UI is more clear in many ways. The Bangboos are now nearly completely free to play. Though these Bangboos are still luck based because I mean they have a gacha banner, which I personally dislike. I mean, it's fine. You cannot really pay for it, so I think it's okay. And we finally have multiplayer combat, which is also great. So now you can not only play the arcade games with your friends, you know, can like trash some bosses or get trashed together, whatever. That being said, let me also provide a few points of feedback. While I think it is unlikely that any of those will be changed or implemented given the release of the game is only like 2 months away now, let's say them anyway, no? So first of all, please introduce a different currency for the disk drive gacha pulls. Having to decide between XP for leveling your relics or pulling for new ones, that just feels really bad. Secondly, we need a friend list or more multiplayer activities except for just the bosses. Let us meet our friends in the overworld. And speaking of the overworld, the fact that I cannot see the characters I have spent money for or I've pulled generally, maybe I'm free to play, in the overworld and only during combat also feels a little bit weird. At least from me, coming from like a Genshin or HSR perspective, or even Wuthering Waves, only being able to see those characters in combat feels really weird. And last but not least, the farming stages, personally I think, take quite long, so anybody who is not just logging in every day for 1 minute will spend quite a bit of time farming. Like it's not like an hour or whatever, but 5, 10, 15 minutes, depends a little bit I guess on your equipment and the level you are at. But I personally think just for daily farming, these stages don't need to be, like the enemies don't need to be this tanky on these stages, especially early into the game. So, that being said, to end this video, I wanted to give a small heads up to all the people who are curious about the time this game will take. As I just hinted at, while it will not really take hours, in my personal opinion, it is much closer to Genshin in terms of daily login time than Star Rail. Like Star Rail, honestly, it's just so fast and you can autoplay it, so it doesn't matter anyway. So, that all being said, if you're interested in the game, use my pre-registration link in the description or in the pinned comment to sign up for ZZZ when it releases. Thank you for watching and have a great day. Peace.